I think that's all that I need to say. And but I did want to just thank you, Erich, in advance, because I think that your enthusiasm for this kind of conversation and the importance that it has for us has already been infectious among our staff. So looking forward to participating today. And I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Anne and the Creative Arts Workshop for letting me try this out. To me, it's really kind of important to get people together as a community, and I've been learning a lot lately about how important it is to connect just in general amid this craziness. And I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of say hello to everybody. And I want to thank everybody else who's here for taking the time out of their day just to, try this out. And I appreciate, anybody who shares. So thanks for contributing. Basically, the conversation here we're trying to start is a larger conversation about creativity. And hopefully we can extend it beyond this one, depending on how it goes today. But we're going to explore different aspects of creativity, the facets of it, everything ideally from inspiration, through process. We might get some of that in there. Hopefully this continues to evolve into maybe some sharing of work at some point, but all the way through to how we finish a piece or a finished product. Everybody's going to have their own perspective. Everybody's going to come from it in a different way. And it's my belief that no matter where you come from or what you're doing in life, that you somehow are creative. Everybody from the most rigid accountant to, craziest flamboyant artist, we're all creative. We're all humans, and it's a human trait. And I'm just really interested in getting everybody to kind of put their piece of the puzzle and into this mix, and hopefully we can all come away and learn a little bit about each other and ourselves, and grow toward toward a better community, and also how we might take what we learn here out to other people and help continue the conversation outside of this format. So ultimately the ground rules are pretty simple. I think most people here already get it, but we all want to be respectful, try to build on other people's ideas. Mom, this one, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. I'm gonna spin that a little bit and say that if you don't have anything nice to say, find a way to say it that allows everybody else to hear what you mean without insulting anybody. So that's pretty straightforward, but I think everybody gets the idea. All right, so basically, I want to kind of start at the beginning of what a creative process might involve, which is inspiration. Ideas, where they come from, what are the conditions we create to get our best ideas, who are the people we with, what type of environments do we tend to gravitate toward. I myself, depending on what I'm up to, for example, if I'm doing a project that involves a collaboration with lots of other people, the ideas come in from all angles, and we try to shape it into something and pull out the best stuff and move forward as a group. And then there's other times where I'm in the shower, and that's a really great place to think for me, and or I'm running in the woods, or just taking quiet space to myself. But more often than not, if I'm coming up with a creative idea that's my own, I got to find a quiet place to just put everything to the side. And then, just building off of, I know there's a lot of musicians in the room, where you guys get your inspiration, the types of people, you're around, and the types of maybe mentors or heroes you have. So really just want to kind of open it up to anybody who might want to share, what kind of gets you going. And if I have to pick, I will.
Well, I found a lot of inspiration, Erich, from people sharing their sort of talents on places like Facebook and Instagram and those sorts of outlets. It's interesting that given this much downtime, some people have come out of the woodwork that haven't made work in 10, 20 years. And that's been really inspiring and also an eye-opener to me that I sort of have put some stuff to the side as well. And I guess that's what I gotta say.
Kudos to you, Paul. Notice you're sharing quite a bit more lately.
Trying to, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's scary. I mean, it's scary, and I think that, I mean, obviously there's some young faces on this, but for the older folks, it's a little daunting to put yourself out there, especially if you've never recorded yourself on video. I played plenty of live shows. It was terrifying the first time to record myself. So
yeah,
it's a big step, but you get over it, and then you do find people reach out and they're inspired by what you're doing, and maybe for the first time ever have shown somebody what they're doing in their little, you know, secluded world. So
yeah. Thanks, man. Anyone else?
I find inspiration when I bounce ideas off of people who aren't necessarily in the same field as me. That's really fun because they always have a different perspective, and it's always something that I didn't necessarily think of because I just don't think the same way. So I love like working with different minded people.
Yeah, I have that happen to me a lot. I do a lot of different things and work with a lot of different people and jump from one thing to the next, but there's always room for people who have a different perspective when we're in a collaboration. I feel like that always helps the end product. So,
yeah, I've also been working with people, you know, lately who I guess I've been introduced to working with a new set of people in the last month or so, and something that I like about it is that it opens up my resources to what they also have to offer outside of the particular project. And, you know, discussing someone else's project with them and then being kind of like their hands to make something or fabricate something, or which is what I'm doing. I'm helping an artist to build a project that she has funding for. But just like the sessions where we're talking about how something gets done, what's the order of operations, and where her money came from, how she pitched that project, who she spoke to, what the inspiration was, and how she connected with an audience. Those are all things that I didn't really, or that maybe I value and that I feel like I'm learning. So, you know, I really appreciate being able to take what someone else has done and kind of just try to absorb it.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it's easy to learn when when you go into a project kind of not feeling like you have to know all the answers. You know,
Right.
You can absorb other people's input in a way that, you know, gives you a little nugget of growth or information that you didn't have before. And I feel like I do that every time. I'm always doing something brand new. So it's important to be able to listen to other people and get that, you know, that little nugget of something you didn't have before. Bring it forward. Does anybody else have anything they want to contribute to where you get your inspiration or the types of people you hang around to be inspired?
Musically speaking, you know, when you write a song or write, you know, maybe a verse, chorus, and then you have your idea for it, or you have, you know, this song completely plotted in your head, and it, you know, and then when you bring it to a band or different musicians, you know, it gets split and it gets different contributions and it changes. Sometimes for me that sucks, and it's like, stop changing my stuff. But, you know, most of the time it's a beautiful thing. So I've noticed that, you know, in self-quarantine, not quarantine, but shelter in place. Yeah, there we go. So for me, the only people I have to bounce my ideas off on a daily basis are, you know, my wife and my children and my mother. Thank God for my mother. But, you know, I generally need more reassurance in that department from not my mom to feel like validation in my ideas, or, you know, anyway, that's on the working with other people thing. It's a big part of my creative output.
I'll speak to songwriting as well. I find that this time in self-isolation, I think the main part of mine, like, I think for a long time I didn't really consider myself an artist in any way. Maybe I still don't, but for some reason it's just more of like this soul thing for me. Like when I tap into what I'm feeling, what's the energy around me, the energy of who I'm hanging out with, or like right now, this energy of like uncertainty, I find I always draw a lot of inspiration from and see how it hits me. And sometimes I take a lot of walks and I hear music when I'm walking, and I'll just put it in my voice memo for later, or I'll just sit with the guitar and just try to like tune in, and see what comes out. Sometimes I feel inspired and I'll write. And then sometimes if I feel like I'm working it too much, I'm like, all right, maybe I'll just practice some guitar stuff and not try to create as much. But for me, it's just about the flow. If I'm feeling the flow, if I'm feeling it going, it's not my full-time thing. It's something that's, is an outlet for me, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy sharing it and connecting. But it's all about, experience, what I'm experiencing. But recording it, voice memos, I send it out to a lot of friends and like to hear feedback, sometimes, I rework it, but yeah.
I feel like feedback's key in a lot of this, and especially like,
Especially in metal.
yeah, well, I think just feedback in general, just getting people to see it before you go too far or before you don't go far enough. You just kind of want to get that sounding board a little bit. I mean, musically, I feel like it's a different, I'm only relating to what I know. So, to me, it's a more fluid thing, and I would think it's easier to kind of make a quicker adjustment. And for me, making things that are tangible or going down, a road with something that's going to be permanent, that's all prep work, because once we're done planning, we're going forward. And if we stop and go backwards, then it's, the whole idea has to change, or the process has to change, and that becomes problematic in a number of ways. But the sounding board, almost to the point, depending on the project, of an approval process, and that's more of a business side of it. But definitely from a creative perspective, like if I'm unsure about something that I think I like, but I'm not sure, and I want to like kind of get some validation, I mean, sharing it any way that's possible does help me, at least make a better judgment, because I could just tell that person, all right, they could give me feedback that absolutely makes no sense, and then and then I think about it and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the only person who's going to be looking at this, so maybe I ought to look at it differently. And that sometimes helps me move forward in a way that I wasn't expecting. So that could be cool as well.
I find also that I feel differently about my songs almost every day. Especially like new songs I'm working on, or stuff that I'm in the process of, doing some recording stuff, or stuff that I'm working on currently, I'll listen to it every day and I have different feelings about it every day. And I'm wondering, sort of, I don't know if you're going to include this in the conversation, but just, sort of managing that, like some days I'm like, yes, this is amazing. And then the next day I'm like, what? I'm not sure about this part, trying to work it. But then the next day it's like, I don't know. So it's good. The feedback's good, but also, you can feel very differently about what you're creating,
Mm-hmm. Could be depending on how late you're up that night too, because I get really good ideas late at night that I think are awesome at night. And then I wake up and I'm like, what was that?
Yeah, I get super stoked, send it out. You're like, why did I send that out to anybody?
Yes, and then I send it before I wake up, and that's just.
I don't find artists and musicians to be the most secure group of people to begin with. So it's, we usually, this rabbit hole is one we all venture down. And, when you're putting your piece of yourself out there to the world, it's generally scary
Yeah.
do that. So, I'm with you, Steph. I feel differently day to day about your songs also.
Jay's recording my song, so.
I'm listening to them a lot lately. I love them.
I think that's an important point, though. You know, like as artists or as creative people, and I think this is, and I've been listening to a lot of different people, not just creative types, but everybody has that. Everybody has that insecurity or that trepidation about, am I doing this right? You know, is this going to work? And a lot of it, you know, a lot of what I found a lot of confidence in is the sharing part, you know, like find somebody you trust and pass it on to them and like get that feedback. It's not, you know, it's not always the first thing we think of, but, you know, in the interest of helping this concept, this conversation grow, like how do we help each other out? You know, how are we going to help each other put our best foot forward? And I think that the ability to share back and forth ideas and be a little bit vulnerable in process, you know, could really contribute to some gems out there. And I feel like a lot of people, you know, a lot of people forget that the creative process doesn't have to be a lonely process. So
I think that there's something to sharing what you're interested in before it is a formed, complete idea. Because, you know, I find that if you wait around and until that idea or that song or that piece of artwork or that concept is completely coalesced, then that can take a lot of time. And it's also time that you could be devoting to just letting people know that this is what I do, this is what I'm interested in, help me. And so it's like the more that people know, the more that you talk about what you want to do, the eventuality is that you will do it. Or at least you'll meet someone who's going to kind of like help foster that.
Yeah, that's sort of the root of inspiration, right? You just keep moving in that direction, and you don't let it go. Steve, what about you, man? Where are you coming up from with this whole thing? You're on mute, bro. I'm unmuting you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can really resonate with who is that just spoke about, you know, basically putting out an idea that's not complete. There's certainly a bravado in that because you're really putting yourself out there raw, but it's also, you know, having enough self-reflection to understand that the people around you that, you know, can contribute to helping you be a better artist than you are. I mean, this is, I guess, what this forum you invited me to. By the way, thanks. This is pretty rad, man. But now because I struggle with that. I think right now, just with the changing tides of everything, everybody's kind of a job for position trying to figure out how to make ends meet a little bit too. And you see a lot of people going on Patreon and whatnot. And that's an idea I've kicked around in the past. I'm to those that don't know me, I'm an airbrush artist. I do mostly motorcycle tanks and whatnot for clients around the country.
By the way, it's ridiculous work.
Thank you, man. But I do workshops around the country also. So the idea of kind of spreading that idea of knowledge and kind of giving back a little bit's always been very important to me also. But, you know, putting your best foot forward professionally, you know, I always say you have one chance to make a first impression. But to kind of knock down that barrier and put yourself out there as an incomplete idea is so important. Like that was such a very well stated like idea or concept that what's his name just said. You know, no, it does because it sticks with me. It's an idea that I struggle with. As far as inspiration, like it's, you know, the process has always been inspiring enough to me. And I think somebody at the beginning also mentioned looking outside your area of expertise for a different mindset, a different avenue of thinking and how that would apply to what you do best. That, you know, that too, I feel like, you know, if you can get a hold of that concept, that the idea of inspiration is always there if you're looking for it and there's no shortage of it. But yeah, just, you know, being all right with being imperfect, I think is a big concept and a scary one for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to go out there with your best, but to put yourself out there not at your best and be okay with that also is, you know, that's a big move.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that is, you know, I mean, if I'm making my own artwork, I could work on it to till it never goes out, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are like that. We'll just noodle the same thing over and over and over again. If we're left to our own devices, no one will ever see it. It'll never see the light of day because you want it to be perfect. A lot of that I've tried to let go of, because then I'm not sharing, you know, then I'm not getting it out there at all. If I'm trying to make it right and it's so right by my standards, like, I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to that. You know, I'll put myself down more than I'll build myself up when I'm in process. And it sounds like a lot of you experience the same thing. Sorry, a truck going by if you heard that. And the whole point is, if you don't have like a place to start, then you can't really move forward. Like, what if you can't put a line in the sand and say, all right, I got to move forward from here, and take that kind of leap of faith that it's going to be okay enough for now, and then, you know, so build and refine, you know, build and refine, and it's sort of like sort of a design thinking way of going at it, is that you go into it knowing that it's not going to be perfect. And now I've learned that it's never going to be perfect. You know, there's no such thing. And if you wait till then, you know, you're missing the opportunity to connect with people, to Steph's point, you know. So it's really good to I feel like it's just good to get it out there and keep charging ahead. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, you know, this environment that we're in now is obviously not normal, right? Where we're all kind of sort of isolated, and some of us have more access to people than others. But I wonder if any of you guys are really getting kind of stuck in your own heads, and doing sort of the spiral into not friendly places, and also what you guys do to get out of that. I'd be real surprised if nobody's gone through that moment of like, oh, holy shit, you know, what's going to happen, or despair in your prospects for what's going to, you know, come out of you later, or are you going to have a gig to play, and, or, you know, where your client's coming from, all of that stuff. I feel like that's an important thing to talk about, just so that we can kind of help each other out, to move forward from that stuff.
I'll speak to some of that. There's a lot of things that stand out to me in all of this, the creative process and sharing, and fear and struggle during this time and all of that. And I think sometimes, at least for me, what's been helpful is, you know, kind of recognizing, certainly, you know, we're in a different experience, and not comparing what's going, this is my cat. she now comes out every time I'm on a video. Not comparing what's going on now to what we used to experience in ourselves and in our creativity. I think that that's supporting me, just recognizing this is a new space, this is a new time, and as I navigate this, I'm going to experience some different things, right? And that I don't necessarily need to judge myself in that. One of the things that I think is so beautiful about the creative process is that, you know, when you do get into a state of flow, or at least for me, I mean, if I'm in a state of flow with anything I'm creating, whether it's poetry, writing, dancing, acting, I'm not connected to that place in me that's judging and analyzing and trying to figure everything out. That space of creativity in the mind can just kind of be open. And in a time like this, where it's kind of like there are other factors, I notice the judging mind comes in a little bit more.
Yeah.
I try to be patient with myself and like say, okay, so these are some of the things I want to work on that are going to support me. Here are some new opportunities that exist that didn't necessarily exist before, just because I open my mind up to that. And I can start feeding that with attention. I can start giving attention to those things every day. And then spontaneously, when I'm not trying to think about it in the shower or wherever, I'll get all of these ideas that come out of nowhere. And then in some moments, it's like I can just kind of feel what's there and go with that and let that express and this sort of thing. But then at the end of all of that, you know, there's a lot of new things coming out of it. And the opportunity to share is certainly there. But I think that that too requires a sort of selflessness. It's just like creative process is selfless in a way. You're getting out of analytical minds, you're getting out of judgments, and you're allowing a flow of energy and to create this thing that you're creating. And then when you are in this place where now you have the opportunity to share it, it's very easy for the judging mind to come in and start saying, oh, wait, and start thinking about comparison or what others might think or say. And in those moments, I like to remind myself, like, wait a second, to give is being of service, to share is selfless. So what keeps me from doing that is my attachment to needing people to see me a certain way, or my attachment to them needing to see this a certain way. And if I could let go of that and remember that sharing and giving a part of myself is sharing and giving something that I've created, maybe I can take myself out of that a little bit and just allow myself to give, you know, a part of myself through this creative thing. So that's like finding a way to be a little bit more selfless.
Yeah.
Supports me in just letting go, getting creative ideas, moving toward new things, you know, being gentle with myself in the process, patient, and then even sharing.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Go ahead, Phil.
I think it's tough for a lot of us who are in the arts because there's this initial creative impulse.
You're running out, Phil. Give a little.
That we're somehow supposed to address that, but it's not necessarily, maybe it's not necessary, you know, like maybe we don't need to start making COVID art, or also.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm finding like little to no inspiration in these times. So for me creatively, what I've started doing is like, I've made my art habitual, and I come down to my basement and I start playing guitar without thinking about it. I'll play the drums to it, and then I get my creative mind flowing, and hopefully I get something out of it. Right now, what I have is dated runs of every single date during this of like drums and guitar that I'm never going to use, but that's just what I have to do to get through this this part of history we're living in, because I find it tragic. And you know, I feel very lucky that I'm an appliance repair dude, and that's what I do for a living. And you know, I'm able to collect unemployment right now, and it's huge, you know. So I've been quiet on my art because there's artists out there that need to make a living. I ordered a ton of merch. We had 2 good shows before all this happened. You know, and I chose not to like sell the shirts online. I might do it now because, you know, shit's getting a little hectic. But, you know, I made that choice just because so many artists now are having to find different ways. Somebody brought up Patreon, somebody, you know, all these different ways. I know a lot of my music friends do downwrite, where they're writing songs for people, you know. So for me, I'm keeping my head down, but I'm keeping my creative process flowing, you know, daily, because it's super important to me. It keeps me in a positive headspace. It's like the only thing that keeps me in a positive headspace.
Yeah, it's great. Hey, Jay and Steve, anybody, if you guys have online resources for people to go after work, because I find like having actually work to go after helps people get out of that place of being stuck. So if you guys want to share that to the chat, any little, you know, nugget of help for people who want to go after a gig here and there, if it's still available, that'd be, I think, appreciated to some of us.
On the music end, Bandcamp right now is waiving all their fees, so you know, all their artist fees. So that's 100% profits to you as a musician. I would recommend going, you know, putting at whatever songs you have up on that platform, and you know, you'd be surprised how many people are supporting the arts right now.
Yeah,
it's just it's very heartwarming that it's happening. I know it's not happening on a big enough scale, but you know, it's happening, and you know, I'm supporting the arts, and I'm ordering, you know, art from friends. This is just what I can do to support the small business I care about in this time, you know.
Thanks, Jay. Anybody else have any tips or thoughts about getting completely unstuck or maintaining a practice?
I mean, I know for me right now, when I find that I'm going inside my head a little bit, you know, the things that are tough for me right now, and I don't know if anybody else is in this situation, but I have joint custody with my children. So I have to pass them back and forth right now with their mother. And that comes with a level of anxiety that I've never really had to deal with before. You know, there's, you know, just the human nature of that in itself is there's going to be trust. There's going to be hardship that is the foundation of that existence right now. So I find myself going outside into nature a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
Amen.
you know, it's a small thing, but there's silence out there right now. It really gives you a chance to feel, you know, particularly at dusk and at sunset, there's a peace there that I find regularly, weather permitting, obviously. You know, I'm actually calling from down the Jersey Shore. I'm way south. So I'm near the wetlands. So there's a lot of, you know, it's seasonal. So there's a lot of birds mating. There's a lot of natural sounds out there right now that I'm really trying to dial into and kind of put my spirit on level with a little bit. And I feel like it's cliche, but I feel like a lot of times those cliches hold a lot of truth to them too. But I know that it tends to pull me out of myself if I find my head going to dark places.
Yeah.
And it's important to find those little pieces of peace almost daily for some of us, and to make time for it, you know. Because I feel like, you know, things are going to be going this way for some time, really, for the unforeseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and even afterwards, I believe that those kinds of things are practices that, when implemented, will only help us, you know, our spirit in general, and really make us better people, to be honest.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
I've been doing the same thing. I take a 5-mile walk every day, and I go to the salt marsh down. I live on the river in New Haven. And I go to this salt marsh and I walk these loops, and I've been meditating and doing some deep soul searching and connecting, you know, with the universe and myself. And it's been, but I've been finding that I'm walking the same loop on these nature trails. I do like a double loop, and it's almost like this labyrinth, you know, where it's like I know what to expect. I try to notice. I sit and I try to listen and hear all the sounds, and so when I, you know, like focus on like what's happening now around me. And I find that like when I go back to write, I also start to try to be more in tune with how I'm feeling. And I've found that sometimes when I write, I get stuck when I feel like I need to write in a certain genre, or when I try to put myself in a box or in some kind of package. And lately, this time, alone in isolation, I've just been like, all right, what's going to come out? I've just been trying to write in different styles, in different ways. And they're songs that might never, you know, nobody might ever see, but it's a way to like spark inspiration and just keep things fresh. And, but I've noticed like that same loop for some reason, and that just like meditating and that sort of walk and sitting and being quiet has definitely helped me mentally, and, you know, it's helped my soul during this time.
I think when I get stuck, my best strategy is just to dump it out. I write things down. I just get them out of my head without expectation of a product or anything fancy. But for me, that's definitely a way of managing emotions or stuckness or observations, and just dump it out. Sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's not, but it's out.
Well, I know
Hey,
for me, I'm in the performing arts, and I do acting, and it's just community theater. I'm retired and loving it, but I'm also trying to take piano lessons at home. And when I get into that funk where I don't want to practice today or whatever, for me, going back to a success helps. The thing that got you really turned on or really worked. And there's one song from Aida that I like to play, You Must Love Me. And there's something about those chords that actually make me cry tears of joy. I don't know if you know what that it's just so beautiful. And then I'm hooked again. Then it's like, I am going to learn how to play piano because I want to do more of this. And then one other thing that I learned I'm homeschooling my granddaughter in Connecticut from Florida. And I'm so impressed with Connecticut school system. They have a whole section on mindfulness every day for the kids. And one of the suggestions they made, it's just the second graders, but we can all learn from it, is when you feel down or sad or whatever you're feeling, think about what you would say to your best friend to help them get out of that or to inspire them, and say it to yourself. So that's my thoughts.
Thanks, Mom. That's great. That's a good one.
Eric,
Oh,
sorry.
Who's up?
go ahead.
I wanted to chime in a little bit. I think that I don't know, what everybody's background is and what your art form is, but I know as a musician, and maybe Jay and Stephanie will speak to this, the best stuff that I make and the stuff that, typically last the longest are the ones that I write in half an hour.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I'm working on for like a week, and I'm trying to loop different things and different sounds and layer things, and the harder I work, the worse it gets. So I don't know if that applies to everybody here, but I find that most of the stuff that I make is really just from pure inspiration, and it's just from diving right in. And if I sit around and I read a bunch of books of how to do it and try to do it some different way, typically it doesn't do me any good. And then the other thing I wanted to put out there, and maybe everybody can chime in, is do you feel like your work's changing right now? Because right now, typically I write sad songs, country songs. I'm good at it, whatever. That's my thing, but I don't feel like it's appropriate right now. And coming from a punk rock background, that's a really weird thing for me to even say, because normally I would say, screw everybody, I'm going to do my thing. But I do feel like as an artist, if I'm going to put something out there, what's my influence going to be on the planet? What do I want it to look like? Well, to your mom's point, what would I tell my best friend to put out there right now? A really sad tearjerker? No. Sing that Johnny Cash cover that everybody likes, or whatever. That's where I'm coming from right now, or my mindset, I guess.
Yeah, I find I've been writing a lot too. Certainly not songs, but ideas, and then really honing that practice of having an idea and then kind of like scripting how it would happen.
Is it just me or is Phil cutting out?
I'm
No,
out all the time.
there he is.
Hey, Phil. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Whew. I just
lost for about.
We're brilliant, but it's not going to happen a second time.
Oh,
I was just talking about like trying to write or being able to write and plan everything out and like script what I'm doing and script what the intention is for the project, and do all the boring stuff like make a budget and talk about how and who I'm going to work with, and then like I guess it's more like theoretical projects or theoretical art, but right now I feel like is a really good time to do that also. And the more that I kind of like suss out all these hypotheticals, the more answers that I have, and then the idea gets.
Well,
out. All right. I
Finish to show it.
So we keep losing you, buddy.
No.
Okay. It sounded great.
Thank you.
Great.
I think we got most of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Jen, did you want to say anything? Jane Mayberry, did you have something to say?
Oh, kind of. As far as like the unstuck thing, I've been finding that learning has been helping me a lot.
Cool.
I signed us up for Skillshare a little while ago. Like I was lacking in a lot of my computer. I'm a visual artist. I work with Steve. But I was like, I wanted for a long time to get better at like Illustrator and things like that. And I've been using this time to take online classes and, kind of make my
digital skills stronger. But I find that like when I feel anxious or uncertain about things, like if I'm moving forward in that way, even if I'm not necessarily creating something that's useful, that helps a lot, especially with like my mindset and stuff. Like I just feel like I'm being useful and productive. Because we're commercial artists, so you know there's original art going out, but there's also client orders and stuff like that. So it's kind of you're dancing between what people want and then what you are also trying to put out. So
yeah,
I don't know, I find that to be that's been really helpful for me.
I think learning and growth, like adding to your your repertoire, your bag of tricks, is huge in a time like this. It's like it's the perfect time to go get better at something, so that when things kind of even out, I don't know, we won't even use the word normal, but when things even out, you have that much more to lean on for your own skill set. I do kind of want to just share a little bit about, and this is just going to be me being a little vulnerable, but there are different varying levels of stuck, and I'm assuming some people would have experienced this and some, maybe not. But for me, there's the level of stuck where I can't just find a solution, or I don't actually know how to do it, and then I'm putting all this pressure on myself to really just power through and get the idea to come out, and just sit in there and just really work too hard trying to sort it out, do the research, do everything, and still no inspiration, no idea. When I'm in that place, I always reaching out to other people has been the way to go. Like, what do you know about this? Or here's this idea I'm having trouble with. Can you help me look at it? And then there's the other side, there's probably 3 other sides, but the other side where I'm emotionally stuck, where I personally just feel horrible. I personally feel like my work, myself, the things that I'm out to do are never going to happen. I'm not worthy of the effort. The time that I'm spending is futile because it's just, who are you to think this way and come up with these ideas and bring this into the world? You're not qualified. You don't have enough. And when I'm that stuck, I basically do anything but something normal. I try to go do something completely new and just get completely out of any environment that reminds me of that headspace. Sometimes I'll go to a new trail because nobody's there, or not as many people are there as would be if I was going to go someplace populated. Sometimes I'll just go for a drive. John experienced this a few weeks ago, but sometimes just go for a drive and just forget, because I can. And other times I just need to disappear and do nothing. I need to just kind of sit and be quiet and try not to think about that stuff. And eventually I talk myself out of all the stuff that I was, dealing with in my own head, that a lot of it isn't true. That a lot of it is just me being afraid to move forward. Leaning on people is the easier way, but sometimes when we don't feel worthy of other people's time, we got to find a way to get out on our own. So that's how I do it. And I think I'm gonna do less of that, because I think the easier way is to give somebody a call. That's sort of a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of sharing how I think tough it can get. But I think as long as we're looking forward and we're hoping to kind of contribute to the world and leave something behind, then it always gets back to even, and we get to move forward.
Can I say 2 things about that? I think probably all of us, at some point feel like a fraud, or, what do we, have any business coming along. But I think for me, first of all, writing songs is my outlet. I don't write songs for for the major part, when I write it for myself. It centers me. It makes me feel sane. It gets everything that's out, in, out. And so first of all, like, that's, my personal thing. Like, if anything, I fall back on that. I'm like, this is good. But as far as creating art for, people to enjoy, whenever I feel like, I'm shit, everything that I write, it's like, I've only had like 2 guitar lessons. I feel like I play this way, my songs feel simple, and it's, what I do though, every time that happens is I remember that person that said that they appreciated it in some way, or it touched them, or it moved them in some way, or someone who somehow connected with it in a way. And I'm I've really do this, recently, and just remember that, like, okay, if I, if someone connected with this, that there's something there, like maybe I should keep doing that and keep, putting it out, because, for me, I want people to connect with it, and they can. If not, then, it's my outlet, it's for me. But if I'm going to put it out there, at least if one person connects with it, if 5 or 10 people, come up to me after a show and you're like, you know what, I really appreciate you sharing that, or there's something about that, it's like, all right, cool, right on. Like, it kind of,
Stephanie, we talked about
a little bit.
We talked about that in a group earlier this morning, where we talked about the vulnerability of putting out something that you want to put out, whether it's music or it's writing or anything at all. And I think we forget the value of just one person coming up to us and saying that whatever it is we did made a difference in their world, or made them think in a different way. We're obsessed like with a culture that's about like numbers, like we have to have a certain amount of followers and whatever, whether it's Instagram or any other social media. But I think we forget what the value is behind even just one person saying, I never looked at life or this situation or myself this way until you said whatever, or you shared whatever it was. So I think we forget how valuable it is just to like touch one person and make a difference in that person's world. And for me, I find when people, I'm a leadership coach, so when I speak to people and they just say, oh, I never looked at things that way, and they have like that aha moment. And maybe musicians see it when people hear your songs, or writers see it when they get feedback on their stories or whatever it might be. But I think we underestimate what the appreciation of just one person is. So don't lose sight of that, because that's huge.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, John. That's like a super awesome segue. I don't know, does anybody else have anything to share on that? Just want to contribute before
I was going to say one last thing. I think that, I wonder if there's space here for trusting ourselves, like, regardless of if you're producing something different than you produced before, or, and whether that is something that's sad or something that's joyful at this time. I mean, whatever is flowing through you, without having to consider everybody accepting that, just trusting what's flowing through you enough to let it flow, and trusting that it will connect to somebody enough to share it, so that means trusting our pain. I think the reason why we get stuck is because we resist what we're feeling.
Even that whole sad song thing is kind of along those lines, where somebody will relate to it. Somebody will have that emotion and not be able to put words to it. So if you can put words to that emotion, somebody might appreciate that just as much, even if it's not a Britney Spears tune or whatever the hell is out there that's happy and up tempo or whatever.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I can fully agree with that. It's hard, I think, from my perspective right now, to put something out there like that in a public realm. Like, if I was to put it on Bandcamp, that would be one thing, and be like, okay, here you go, you're welcome to come find this. But to put it out on Facebook or Instagram, I just feel like I'm throwing it at somebody's face. And maybe that's the difference. But one thing I wanted to say along this topic is, I think one of the biggest things that most of my friends and I have struggled with is the idea of making work without any inherent audience. And it makes you realize how important the audience is, because if you're writing a novel and nobody's going to read it,
Right.
it's really hard to finish your novel. And I think that that's probably the biggest struggle that I've had getting inspired, because I don't know when I get to play it in front of people, and I don't really, frankly, give a fuck about Facebook. I don't, you know, it's like, I want to play it in front of people. I want them to buy my record. I want them to see me and give me a hug afterwards, or buy me a shot, or whatever your thing is, you know.
I get what you're saying, Paul, but like, you know, buying a record and playing a show are two different things, and recording music is what you can do now to put yourself out there, and Instagram just happens, and Facebook just happen to be the best platforms right now for your art. So I just wouldn't feel like you're
For
shoving
sure.
it in anybody's face. You know, it's just what you have to do as an artist to get it out there. I hate self-promoting. I hate it. I can't stand it. It's the thing I've had to get over the most in my creative outlet self, you know. But I have been. I go on Instagram a little, but you know, I put my music out there because I'm not doing myself any favors by not doing it.
And going back to what Christina said, if you feel something flowing out of you, that's like your most, if it's really that kind of flow, and I think everybody that's creative has gotten to that point, it's like a high. Like when I'm writing about leadership and I'm just going and going and coasting, and it's not for anybody else but me. And somebody had mentioned earlier that even if nobody looks at this stuff, like I'm creating it for myself, and then everything else is like a bonus. Now, obviously, if you have to make money by it, I mean, that's a different thing. But going back to Christina's point, that flow, that's fucking energy.
Yeah.
That's energy that's energy that you can't try to create it. You happen to fall into that flow state. So at the very least, follow that through to wherever it, you know, when you're in that flow state, you're going, like you're not even thinking about it. Like Christina said, you're not trying to do it. It's just happening. Don't cut yourself off because you think that nobody's going to appreciate that later. Because that flow leads to more flow and more creative spaces. So don't cut yourself off thinking about who's gonna understand and accept the final concept. Even if it is for money, it may lead you down the path that's just going to be more rewarding than anything you could ever find.
Yeah,
John,
this
I have
is
to
what I
agree.
meant.
If you're an artist in it for the money, you're a sadist, you know. But if we do it because it feels good, you know, for ourselves, and that's the best reason to do something, whether you make money at it or not. But I do it because it checks all the boxes for me.
So,
Christina, what were you going to say?
I have a you know, a guilty as charged to reply to here based on what Jay just said. You know, if you do it for the money, you know, you're a sadist. And guess what, Jay? I do it for the money because I have to provide for my family. And there's that part of it.
I guess I was saying solely.
I know, I'm messing with you.
Yeah.
But I struggle with that all the time because you know, it makes it difficult on me to really feel inspired because I'm solving somebody else's problem by being a creative person, you know, and I'm putting myself out there, putting my talents forward so I could provide for my family and kind of keep doing it and get the ideas from, you know, where I started to, you know, where I want to go. And you know, that I have to kind of adopt a different mindset along the way. And I've had to adopt a different mindset along the way, that it's really just, it's not just about me and my expression, but it's about the grander picture of what am I going to leave behind. And I feel like in that regard, I can kind of look myself in the eye and say, like, okay, I'm not doing this just for the money. I'm doing it because I'm leaving something behind that other people can see and say, hey, you know, that's awesome that you did that. Or, you know, that maybe someday my kid will be like, my dad does this, or he does that now, but like, you know, he'll be able to benefit in some way other than me just bringing him home a paycheck, or me not bringing him home a paycheck and living by my art, which would be very difficult to do at the capacity that I'm doing it right now, you know? So, but I do find myself wanting to move more towards how am I impacting people with the things that I make, a lot more from here than, you know, from my wallet. And I think that's a huge thing.
Did you just slap your ass?
Yeah. And it was empty.
This is that kind of show, huh?
It was empty.
I gotta up my donation.
1 minute left. Anything goes.
I have a mantra for this. Output I think this mantra has really helped me. It's my actions are blissfully free from attachment to outcome. And it's like, you know, you do the work, you let it flow, you put it out there. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then you create something new until something works, you know. But if you're so attached to outcome or needing money or whatever, and you're not allowing some selflessness, some non-attachment, I think that sometimes that really kind of bogs us down and you know, gets us stuck.
Yeah, I can really agree with that. That really resonates with me, in that that's why I am where I'm at. And it was a disattachment with my idea of where I thought I should be, and being quiet enough to understand what direction I should go. And those were two very different things. And when I surrendered kind of my own thoughts to all of the signs pointing me in the direction I should go, that's when things kind of started falling into place, you know, for me. Because again, this is my sole income, and it's mostly motorcycle culture. And I'm a surfer who lives at the beach. It's as far removed from my upbringing and my understanding. But I always say that my direction always picked me. I was just quiet enough to listen to it. And I had to be okay with being something other than what I thought I wanted to be. And those, you know, and again, it takes a real quiet mind at times to really understand the difference of those two things. And I put more. It does, you know, and I had no.
It's like, what?
Yeah, you know. But I had no expectation. I still have no expectation. But the more I go along with where, you know, I think things are pointing me without my input, the more these things are kind of like revealed to me as far as direction goes. And you have to be a little bit fearless with the unknown and the uncertainty of it all.
Just to close up, we're getting kind of toward the end.
Yeah.
Both to agree with Christina and Steve, this is part of what that is for me. All right. Getting out there and talking to people and mixing it up and bringing people together is something that I've been drawn to do for a really long time. And I've never done it before. And this is hopefully the beginning. And, you know, doing my work through just talking to people, inspiring them. I mean, that to me is pretty well rewarding enough. It's the part about making art and having the conversations and how it impacts people that gravitates toward the most. So, you know, I'm doing a little less of the making of art and a little more of the talking to people. And I think that to me, that's, you know, it gets the same thing across. And it ultimately is cutting out a whole lot of things that I put in my way to, that didn't allow me to connect with people in a way that I really want to. So hopefully this continues and I get to keep going, and we all get to keep going. One last thing, I know we're kind of over on time, but one last thing I want to do is just sort of drop a little seed of inspiration to everybody, and go out and make connections with somebody else who really needs, you know, you to inspire them, whether it's through Facebook or a phone call or anything. Just help somebody out in any way that you can by just connecting with them and you know, and asking them how you can help them, you know, in this time. That's really that's really what I want to kind of share with you guys, just to kind of spread it out a little bit and share your strength and inspiration, so that we can get, you know, more people to join us, but also to John's point, you know, what's your influence that matters. So go out and do something. I think that's all we have time for. So thanks everybody for coming, and I hope that
everybody, I'm going to launch the poll now. I hope you guys are able to answer and give us some feedback. And thank you so much, Eric, for moderating this discussion. I found it really interesting, and I hope it continues.
Thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Eric.
Good to see you all.